this is my company, this is a startup, and I want you to start the EA practice from the scratch. How would you proceed? What would be your first, second, third, fourth uh, uh, mm, area where you want to work? So how to answer those things? How to think like that?
Yeah, so basically, when you are actually having an EA office that you need to establish, it should have a management support, which in your case you have. That's what the management is pushing you to, do that. So they should actually have a management buy-in, which enables you to, think on those lines and do those things. So which is what you seem to be actually coming to. And typically, what you need to do to set up an EA office is you look at there is this thing called what you do is you don't look at full-blown EA because for large companies that full-blown EA kind of makes sense. But since you're a startup, you're a small company, look at the list of skill sets that would be required for running a EA office. So I'll share you the list of skills and the team members who are required to fulfill an EA office. So one is typically CIO, CTO, or chief architect or enterprise architect, that level. Next is domain architects, solution architects, technology architects, project managers, team lead, tech leads, developers and testers. That is the thing. And then we will have some EA managers. Managers can be at the program level, portfolio level, and at the solution level. So as again, I told you, this is for a very large company. And before you actually try to apply this logic there, you'll also have to look into this aspect of how companies grow to that size. So they say that if it is like a startup, typically it is a founder and maybe 2-3 developers. That's typically a startup. Then from there, you actually grow to a team. Team means 10, 15, 20, 25 people, that's a team. And then after that, you actually have a team of teams, which is like a set of 10, 15, 20 people spread across multiple different geographies in India, Brazil, US, Canada, wherever, that sort of stuff. And you're managing. After that, it becomes a full-fledged enterprise wherein you have large hundreds of people, 50 hundreds of people sitting in many different locations, and then you are managing the show. So that's where you actually have the full-fledged need for an enterprise architect of the nature that you are talking about, because if you apply enterprise architecture anywhere below those levels, of course, in principle, it is there, but the overheads will be so much that you'll not be able to justify. If it's just a 10-man company, of course, you can apply EA, but if all 10 people are sitting in one place, and maybe 1 or 2 people only can actually do the EA's role, because all the other guys will be busy developing and testing and doing other things and stuff like that. So you will have to look at what is the use case for you to apply your EA first before you set up your EA office. What is that you can get? So who's doing the governance part of it? Who is doing the policing of the architecture? Who is doing the risk and compliance? So basically, all of that sort of stuff. So basically, who's laying out the strategy? Who's looking at code reviews, design reviews, implementation reviews? Who's looking at business IT interactions? Who's looking at vendor management? Who's looking at compliance and risk management? Who's looking at security? So you have to establish teams for all of these things. And then you will have to create a workflow wherein, based on how the work flows into the team from strategy to execution, what are the different layers in which currently work, and what flavor of agile are you using? You're using a pod structure, you're using Spotify like metrics model in agile, or hybrid agile, or scrum agile, and how does that mix with EA? So you have to look at the dynamics of those also. And based on those aspects, you can actually create the requisite EA team and the definition saying how you are going to act on those aspects. And then what is the role of the EA? What do they do? What kind of tools do they use? And what is the justification for using those tools? Cost benefits of the tools, and typically, if there is a design issue, who takes care of it? If it's an architecture issue, who takes care of it? If it's an operation issue, who takes care of it? So there should be guidelines that are created. And for architecture also, there should be good design practices. and architecture reviews, implementation reviews, migration reviews, all of that sort of stuff. You will have to actually create some kind of a case study in point to say this is what is going to help us, and this is and then you agree with your management and your other teams saying this is how you're going to be executing project in our company, and this is the model that we follow. And once you get a buy-in, then try to operationalize that process by following it end to end. So that is the whole big story about how to set up an EA. Because it's not like okay, you just read a document and do this 10 steps. Yes, you have an EA office. No, it's not like that. It depends on all of these factors. So you will have to actually talk to your multiple teams, what they want out of it, how does each team intershake or handshake with other teams, what is the management direction, how often do you want to release to the customer, do you have a strong DevOps culture, do you have a strong DevSecOps culture, do you have agile, hybrid agile, what flavor of processes are you using? So based on all of that, you take into account and create an EAOS.
So based on what you said, so you start with the resource hiring. So like you mentioned that you categorize that since if it is uh, like startup, so you need to focus on the CTO and the CIO kind of roles from there, and then you just create the tree like a domain lead, then the sub and plus their members. So and DevSecOps, and you mentioned a DevOps and other area of things. And you mentioned that the tools. So being a startups company, like which tools is like EA tools should I recommend as a chief EA there?
Yeah, so actually I'll share you the list of all the tools that are available. But as I told you, the famous ones or the good ones are Abacus is good, RDoc is good, the Alphabet, Google one is good, Sparks, Enterprise Sparks is good. Then there's a tool called Cosco. Then
Hmm.
all of these tools, Evolution, there's a tool by Evolution, there's a tool from Biz Design, which is a Netherlands-based company. So many tools are there, and sometimes don't go with the tools. So just look at what how you are actually going to, and Archimate is a tool for modeling. So sometimes what happens is you can actually don't have to use the tool. You can create your architecture using any of the open source ones. You can use Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and then you can store it in your SharePoint or something like that. So that is like completely saying that you're not using any of the tools. But all the modeling you can do it using some kind of basic UML plus Archimate and BPMN, which is a business process modeling notation for business diagrams. You can use that. You can use a combination of these things, or you can use a tool also. Because I'm not a big advocate of the tool sometimes, because what happens is tool is good. It solves a lot of good problems, but sometimes you should understand the concept more than the tool. So if you know how to draw a tool and create it using open source or so that also serves a purpose. But sometimes the tools are very good because it all keeps everything in a centralized place. Like you can use Biz Design or some PowerPoint templates, or there are a lot of stencils that you can actually use to create the architecture diagrams, modeling diagrams. You can actually use them, and so the companies are very good in terms of how do you store all of these things. So, for instance, I remember in my previous companies, they used to have a very good knowledge repository. It was so good that you could just query into anything. There's a bug in the code. You just cut paste that thing and it will get some 10 different things. So if your SharePoint is designed well, or if your internal wikis are designed well, so you can store all of these things and keep them updated. That's where the power of the tool really comes in. How easy is it for you to query the information and get it back when you really need it? Because you have joined the company for the last 3 4 years, you're actually doing the work, but somebody newly joins the company and he wants to know, okay, what is this architecture diagram about, what is involved in this payment systems, what is involved in this gateway, what is involved in this API gateway or this process engine. And like this, that can actually create a lot of knowledge bank for you to bank on those details, and so that you don't have to reinvent the way. That way, a tool is really good. But as I told you, it should be designed and tweaked in such a way that you are able to pull out the information when required. Because what happens with people is they have this initial enthusiasm of creating a nice tool. They do the tool, after a few months they lose interest and the tool is just lying there, and they don't update it, they don't periodically have a culture of knowledge sharing, knowledge management, in which case a tool becomes an overhead. That sort of stuff. Unless somebody is continuously asking people to use a tool, update it and share it, and collaborate on the tool, it does not have a huge significance. But again, depends on the direction. It's typically at the level of an engineering head or architecture head or CIO, CTO. If that guy is powerful in the company, then you actually have a good way in which all of these things actually flow. So that is the reason why I'm telling you that tools is good to draw it up, because but to draw it up you don't need to. You can actually, as I told you, can use other tools to draw the architecture diagrams and use them. But if you want to share, collaborate, and live review with multiple people, then of course the tool is actually good. So you just see what is the management mandate from your top management. What are they interested in? How much are they ready to spend time, money, effort, and do that? Because even without a tool, also I've seen very beautiful architecture being maintained and people doing a very good job of the architecture maintenance. But the primary requisite is you will actually have to have a very good knowledge repository or a wiki, wherein whatever you store you should be able to pull it back. That sort of stuff. So if you're able to do that, then I would say your tool is fantastic. Whatever tool is. So let us name the tool as X. So X is good only if you are able to create something, like you created an architecture diagram 2 years ago, but a new RFC comes from a client and you need to respond to that. If you're able to locate that exact diagram from that document and pull it out, share it, and then yes, you have satisfied what is really required. The whole idea of a tool is basically to reduce your manual work and that sort of stuff. So as long as you're able to do that, I would say tool is actually a good thing.